Is a simple sentence from a K-pop idol truly powerful enough to break through the walls of the global economic media? Or is there something far greater quietly at work behind the Economic Times' sudden attention to the name Jungkook? This question immediately lingered in the minds of many readers on the morning, when a brief quote appeared in the U.S. news section of the prestigious economic newspaper, not as entertainment gossip, nor as a light pop culture note, but as a quote of the day, placed alongside the thoughts of world figures, industry leaders, and global social reflections. A surprise that at first glance seemed almost illogical, yet precisely for that reason became impossible to ignore. In the midst of a media world accustomed to confining pop artists strictly to the realm of entertainment, the Economic Times' decision to elevate Jungkook's words as a daily quote revealed layers of meaning far more complex. This was not merely about a famous BTS member, nor solely about the global popularity long attached to his name. There was a subtle yet firm signal that something had shifted, that a voice once associated only with concert stages and streaming screens was now being read as a reflection of work ethic, perseverance, and universal values relevant to readers across professions, across ages, and even across ideologies. The quote itself, when read without context, almost feels like personal advice one might find in anyone's diary while struggling with self-doubt. Effort makes you. You will regret it someday if you don't do your best now. Don't think it's too late, but keep working on it. It may take time, but nothing gets worse due to practicing. So practice. You may get depressed, but it gets you are doing good. These sentences are not filled with technical terminology, nor do they rely on grand metaphors or attempts to sound clever. That is precisely where their power lies. They speak in an honest, almost raw language, as if directed not at a global audience, but at a single person doubting themselves in the middle of the night. Yet when these words were relocated to the pages of an international economic newspaper, their meaning multiplied, transforming from personal motivation into a philosophical statement about process, failure, and time. In its explanation, the Economic Times emphasized that the deepest regrets rarely stem from total failure, but rather from opportunities that were never fully pursued. A perspective that feels relevant not only to artists or athletes, but also to readers grappling with careers, businesses, and life ambitions. Practice, effort, and perseverance are framed not as guarantees of instant success, but as the only process that never worsens one's condition. In a world obsessed with quick results and immediate validation, this message sounds almost subversive, as if challenging the logic of the era itself. Yet the real surprise lies not only in the content of the quote, but in who delivered it and how it ultimately reached the editorial desk of a global media outlet. Jungkook, born on September 1, 1997, in Busan, South Korea, has long been known as Jungkook, the golden magne of BTS, celebrated for his versatility. From a young age, he lived under constant scrutiny, endured years of intense training at Big Hit Entertainment, and grew alongside a group that would later become a global cultural phenomenon. But behind the flawless stage image lies a long journey marked by relentless practice, public pressure, and expectations that often border on the inhumane. The quote, now praised as a universal reflection, was not the result of a media strategy, but a mirror of the prolonged process he himself lived through. When a screenshot of the Economic Times article was first shared by the X account at @Lina_45 later that same day, reactions from BTS fans' army arrived almost instantly. Thousands of likes and reposts poured in within hours, accompanied by comments filled with emotion, pride, and a sense of collective validation. Phrases such as, "So proud of you, Jungkook," and "Jungkook's impact," "So proud I stan a real talented singer," were not merely expressions of fanaticism, but responses to a symbolic recognition long awaited. For many fans, this moment felt like proof that what they had witnessed for years was finally being acknowledged by media institutions once considered part of an entirely different world. However, beneath the euphoria, a deeper and more unsettling question emerged. Why now? Why was an old quote, perhaps once spoken in a simple context, suddenly elevated and given a global stage at the start of 2026? Was this merely an editorial coincidence, or a sign of a broader paradigm shift regarding who is deemed worthy of serving as a moral and motivational voice in the modern era? In a media landscape where the boundaries between economics, culture, and generational identity are increasingly blurred, this decision appears to be an early clue that something is slowly changing. Other international outlets such as the LA Times and Billboard have, in recent years, highlighted how Jungkook, both as part of BTS and as a solo artist with the album Golden, has consistently emphasized commitment to growth and artistic authenticity. Yet the placement of his quote in the Economic Times elevates that narrative to an entirely different level. This is no longer about music charts or sales records, but about the value of hard work as a life principle, one that can be translated into the language of economics, productivity, and self-development. In a world that idolizes instant success and fleeting virality, Jungkook's quote instead reminds us of something often forgotten: that slow, exhausting, and frequently invisible processes are the foundation of achievements that endure. There are no sweet promises, no glorification of suffering, only a simple assertion that practice is never wasted. When read by millions from vastly different backgrounds, this message becomes a mirror forcing readers to ask themselves, have I truly given my best effort, or have I merely been waiting for results? Perhaps this is the real reason a single quote from Jungkook has startled the global media. Not merely because of who said it, but because it arrived at a moment when the world is weary of shortcut illusions. When those words appeared on the pages of the Economic Times, they became more than news, they became a lingering question, a signal that the voices of a new generation can no longer be separated from serious conversations about work, meaning, and the future. And if this is only the beginning, the question now shifts. How far will that influence extend, and who else will be forced to pay attention? If a single quote is able to cross the boundaries of entertainment and enter the realm of global economic discourse, then the life journey behind that quote can no longer be read as an ordinary celebrity story. It is at this point that the name Jungkook ceases to function merely as a symbol of popularity and begins to serve as a representation of a long process that has rarely been examined with seriousness. What readers of the Economic Times saw in late January 2026 was, in reality, only a small visible peak of an iceberg formed over more than a decade, long before BTS was known to the world, long before stadiums filled with light, and long before the solo album Golden dominated global music charts. Jungkook entered the entertainment world not as a figure instantly ready for the spotlight, but as a teenager still searching for his own shape. Born and raised in Busan, he left his hometown at a very young age, carrying big dreams and uncertainties that even many adults are often unprepared to face. When he joined Big Hit Entertainment, an agency that at the time was still far from being an industry giant, the decision was not driven by guaranteed success, but by a simple yet decisive personal conviction. BTS's leader became one of the main figures influencing that choice, not because of fame, but because of the artistic vision and integrity Jungkook recognized from the beginning. It was here that the foundation of Jungkook's values began to take shape, within an environment that demanded hard work without promises of instant reward. Practice after practice was carried out in closed rooms never seen by cameras. Those long, exhausting hours rarely become part of the popular narrative surrounding K-pop idols. Yet it is precisely there that the meaning of Jungkook's quote about effort and perseverance finds its roots. He grew into the golden magne, not merely because of natural talent, but through consistency in refining his vocal skills, dance, songwriting, and music production. Every small improvement was the result of near-monotonous repetition, a process that often offers little immediate emotional satisfaction. In this context, his statement that practice never makes things worse sounds not like theory, but like an empirical conclusion drawn from his own lived experience. When BTS began to break into the international market, the pressure on Jungkook only intensified. Global popularity brought new expectations, constant public scrutiny, and demands for flawless performance. Yet instead of distancing himself from the process, he placed even greater emphasis on the importance of unseen internal work. On various occasions, through interviews and messages to fans, Jungkook often spoke about doubt, emotional exhaustion, and moments when motivation seemed to fade. The sentence, "You may get depressed, but it gets you are doing good," reflects an awareness of mental realities that are frequently ignored in success narratives. He does not conceal the darker side of the process, but neither does he use it as an excuse to stop. This is where the Economic Times finds its relevance. The publication did not frame Jungkook's quote as an entertainment anecdote, but as a reflection on work ethic that transcends the music industry. In an increasingly competitive economic world, where failure is often perceived as disgrace and delay as defeat, the message of slow progress and repeated practice sounds almost radical. The Economic Times interprets Jungkook's words as a reminder that the greatest regret is not an outcome that was never achieved, but an effort that was never fully given. This perspective aligns with much research on professional growth, yet it is rarely delivered in such a human and accessible language. Public reaction to the article demonstrated how deeply the message resonated across different layers of audiences. On social media, particularly Platform X, discussion emerged not only from BTS fans, but also from users who connected the quote to their own experiences in work, education, and everyday life. Many admitted feeling moved by the simplicity of the message, as if finding validation for struggles that had long gone unacknowledged. In this context, Jungkook is no longer read as an idol speaking from an ivory tower, but as someone who understands the frustration of progress that feels painfully slow. This phenomenon also attracted the attention of cultural and media observers. Several analysts suggested that the Economic Times decision reflects a shift in how mainstream media views public figures from Asia, particularly K-pop artists. Where Korean artists were once positioned as niche phenomena or temporary trends, they are now increasingly seen as cultural actors capable of contributing ideas with global relevance. Jungkook's quote, in this sense, functions as a bridge between the personal experience of a young artist and universal discourse on hard work and the meaning of effort. Jungkook's solo album Golden, released sometime earlier, further strengthened this narrative. The album was not only commercially successful, but also praised for demonstrating artistic maturity and a more personal exploration of identity. Its songs reflect an inner journey aligned with the message of the quote, about discovering oneself through consistent work and the courage to face uncertainty. This success placed Jungkook in a unique position as an artist capable of combining mainstream achievement with deep reflection on growth. Yet amid all this recognition, an increasingly difficult question emerges. Does global media attention toward Jungkook's quote signal a permanent shift in how the world defines moral authority and inspiration? If a K-pop idol can become a source of reflection in an economic newspaper, then the boundary between entertainment and serious discourse is becoming ever more blurred. This is not merely a symbolic victory for fans, but an indication that a new generation of public figures is being recognized not only for what they produce, but for how they understand and interpret the process behind it. This point, Jungkook's story ceases to be purely individual and begins to function as a collective mirror. It reflects the anxieties and hopes of a generation growing up amid performance pressure, economic uncertainty, and constantly rising social expectations. That simple quote, when reread in this context, feels like a quiet invitation to pause and reassess our relationship with effort, time, and failure. And perhaps without fully realizing it, this is the reason global media ultimately paid attention, because those words speak directly to the unease of the era, with an honesty that is difficult to fabricate. What happens after the euphoria fades and media attention shifts to other issues often determines whether a moment will be remembered or forgotten. Yet in the case of Jungkook's quote highlighted by the Economic Times, its impact did not simply disappear. Instead, it left a deeper resonance, seeping into conversations across generations and disciplines, as if marking a small yet meaningful point in the history of global popular culture. The question is no longer why the media paid attention, but what that attention means for how the world will read public figures in the future. And the days following the article's publication, various international media outlets began linking Jungkook's quote to a broader phenomenon concerning shifting definitions of leadership and inspiration. Where motivational reference figures once largely came from politics, academia, or major business leaders, voices from the worlds of art and entertainment are now increasingly invited into serious spaces of reflection. Jungkook, with his background as a young Asian artist, stands as a concrete example that honest personal experience can carry universal weight when expressed at the right moment. For BTS fans, this moment felt like validation of what they had long believed. Jungkook is not merely a talented figure on stage, but an individual who consistently lives by the values of hard work. Many ARMY saw the quote as a crystallization of the long journey they have witnessed since BTS's early debut days. from relentless training to the courage to continue growing under global pressure. The emotional reactions that surfaced on social media reflected a deep sense of shared ownership, as if this symbolic recognition belonged to the collective rather than to one individual alone. Yet its impact extended beyond the fan community. Among the general public, particularly younger generations facing an uncertain future, the message about practice and perseverance found new relevance. In an era where failure is often publicly displayed and constantly compared, Jungkook's quote offers a more humane perspective. It does not promise quick results, but affirms that the process itself holds value. In a world driven by instant gratification, such a message feels almost like a long-forgotten reminder. Cultural observers note that this moment also reflects the increasing fluidity of boundaries between Eastern and Western cultures. Media outlets like the Economic Times, whose audiences are accustomed to economic and geopolitical analysis, implicitly acknowledge that sources of inspiration are no longer confined to specific regions or industries. Jungkook's quote was received not because of K-pop's exotic appeal, but because of its relevance to universal human experience. This marks an important shift in how global media positions voices from Asia within mainstream discourse. Ultimately, that single quote may not change the world overnight, but it leaves behind a subtle trace that is difficult to erase. A reminder that behind statistics, charts, and numbers are human beings grappling with time, doubt, and hope. Jungkook, through his words, has unknowingly placed himself within a conversation far larger than music. And when the Economic Times recorded it as a quote of the day, the world seemed to receive a quiet signal that true inspiration often comes from unexpected places, waiting to be noticed by those willing to read more deeply. The trace left by this quote has also sparked a renewed awareness that the power of words is not always determined by who speaks the loudest, but by who most consistently lives by what they say. Jungkook, without grand speeches and without an academic stage, demonstrates how personal experience can transform into collective reflection. At this point, global media attention feels not like an ending but like a beginning, a shift in how the world interprets the meaning of perseverance from an entirely different perspective.